Hey everybody, so today's topic is should the After movie sequel or After We Collided film adaptation, should that be rated R? Because as you know, very controversially, the first film in the After film franchise was rated controversially PG-13. And now the question is that now that Anna Todd and Jennifer Gibgot are taking more control over the sequel, it sounds like they are going for an R. It sounds like that's what they want. The question is, should it go rated R? Now, there's the more, how can I put this, the more selfish side of me that says, hey, if I'm going to keep doing these read-throughs, and I'm going to keep reading, sex scene after sex scene after sex scene, these explicit scenes, yes, by God, yes, this thing needs to be rated R, because obviously that's what Anna Todd intended. I mean, that's what she wanted. That's what she envisioned. I mean, that's what she wrote. This thing needs to be rated R. Now, let me be honest with you. If the film had just 100%, just faithfully adapted it and put, as many sex scenes as there are in the books, oh no, it would be rated either NC-17 or X. That's the truth. So yeah, I mean, you got to make some cuts, but you can still get away with a lot in an R. And I will always go back to this movie that I saw, or a movie that I keep quoting, The Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, if you go watch that movie, if you're underage, please do not see that movie. I'm not, recommending that movie to anybody. But if you do, then you'll know that film is very sexually explicit. I mean, I read the books. Me and my dad read the books before we ever went to go see the film, and our mouths dropped in the first 5 minutes about what they were able to get away with. So yeah, The Wolf of Wall Street definitely showed that you can push it to the limit. So yeah, I could definitely see them, especially with the After We Collided film adaptation, I could see them being able to push that as far as they can, or I hope that they push it as far as they can without going over into NC-17 or X. Now, the truth of the matter is that I don't need it to be explicit. I mean, I think that they did I think they did a good enough job with the first one. I mean, kind of showing that they could walk that line between PG-13 and R, because I mean, because at some point, if you make it so explicit, then you're kind of just using the explicitness as a crutch. And I feel like they did like a lot more than they would have been able to do if they would have done like a hard R for the first one. Like there's even a scene where Hardin goes down on Tessa, where in a PG-13 they actually kept the camera here. They actually kept the camera where it belonged, right here on her face, on her, on her pleasure, where the camera should have stayed. But in an R, then you run the risk of, going into more of a wide shot where you actually do see, just like a more explicit shot of him between her legs, which again, that's not really needed. But because that's what Anna Todd envisioned, because that's what she wrote, yes, I am voting that yes, the After We Collided movie needs to be rated R. It needs to go back to the books, because again, as I said, you need the fans. Because even though it made more than enough money to justify a sequel, I can almost guarantee that was 100% the fans. That was not a general audience who had never read the books or who did not know what the books are. And I know that there are, some people who have never read the books who probably went to go see the film. But yeah, the vast majority was the fans. And the first film kind of proved you need the fans behind you. Otherwise, you're just going to, otherwise you might not even get a third movie. And right now, that is the goal at this point, is to not only get that second film, because like I said, as always, we are waiting for that final green light, that official green light. But, but that is the goal, to let them finish this, to finish what they started. Now, the question is, should they get an R? Like, should they go for the R? And that is the thing that they do have to kind of sit down and take a look at. And I'll even shoot this to you guys. Are there any of you out there who might be watching this video who you were able to go see this film in theaters because they went with a PG-13? Because they didn't go the more explicit route? Because they would the age, would the rules about the ages, would that have stopped you if they did go more explicit? If they did end up going for an R, would that have stopped you from seeing this film? Because again, like you wouldn't have been able to get into the theater without a parent, without a guardian, without a cool older friend, willing to get you in. But the truth of the matter is, at least where I'm from, where I live, the theaters really don't give a damn most of the time. They only seem to care. I mean, like it really is like a roulette. It really is like playing roulette, Russian roulette with these theaters. At least in my area. I mean, sometimes they care. Sometimes they just couldn't give a shit. But yeah, I mean, that is the question. I mean, that really does become the question of like how many people would not have been able to see this film had they gone for the R, because I saw this film 10 times. 10 times I saw this film in the theaters. And every time I went to go see it, there was like a handful of people in there who were underage, who looked underage, who looked like they would not have been able to see the film had it not, had it gone for the more explicit route. And I think that really is what they kind of need to look at, what they really kind of need to sit down and, talk amongst themselves. That, oh, if we went for the R, sure, we're making the vastness of the fandom happy, but are we shooting ourselves in the foot, with other people or with other members of the fandom who might not be able to go see it if we do put that more restrictive rating on it? Now, I will always go back to the books. I will always go back to what Anna Todd originally envisioned, which is that she envisioned a very sexually explicit book. It is a very sexually explicit book. If you just were to adapt it, just like line by line from the book, it would be 17 or X, but, they're never going to be able to get away with a 17 or an X, because if you get a 17, well, if you get an X, you're just going to end up in a porn store, in a how am I getting tongue tied here? In a adult film store. Like, that's where you're going to end up if you get an X. And if you get a 17, here's the rules if you get an NC-17, because I have seen some in the fandom saying like, oh no, they should have gone for even higher than an R. They should have just gone for it. No. No, 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 no. Because let me say what happens if you get a 17. You cannot run TV spots. You cannot do the TV trailers. You will never get the trailers for the actual film in front of anything at the movies. They cannot put up posters. They cannot run radio spots. And the vast majority of theaters will not get it. The vast majority of theaters have said that they will not get NC-17 films. And I think that the reason why there is because there is a stigma on NC-17 films where they think like, oh, it would never make any money. Because back in the 90s, for all you kids out there who might be watching this, who might be too young to remember this, there was a film called Showgirls that came out back in the 90s with Elizabeth Berkley from Saved by the Bell, which was a very sexually explicit film. They got an NC-17, and that film is really linked to the kiss of death, in terms of the fact that, like that's why NC-17 is considered the kiss of death for films. And so what happened was it came out and it was a complete flop. It was a disaster. First of all, it wasn't a good movie anyway, so I can't really be surprised that it flopped. But it did. It did not make a lot of money, based on the controversy, based on the hype around it, the taboo-ness of it all. It should have made more money, but it didn't. It ended up flopping at the box office. So after that, everybody started, or Hollywood and the theaters started to say, okay, NC-17 films do not make money. So if you get an NC-17 film, the rule basically states that you cannot, like I just said, you cannot run TV spots, you cannot run, the trailers in front of the movies that are playing at the theaters. The vast majority of theaters will not get it. The only people who will probably end up getting it is like some places in like LA, New York, and some of some of the other places like throughout the country, but like just only like a handful of theaters will actually carry NC-17 films. And the reason why I know all this is, well, not only do I've studied the industry, I kind of know a little bit about the industry, but also because I read the book, and because there was like a lot of talk before the film ever came out. The Wolf of Wall Street. Again, here we're back to the Wolf of Wall Street. So when the Wolf of Wall Street was getting ready to come out, I read the book. My dad read the books, and we kept saying that there's no way that they can go out with an R. There's no way that this thing gets an R unless they do something extreme to it. Unless they, take out 90% of the stuff in the books. And so I went around to like all my theaters basically saying like, hey, there's a rumor that the Wolf of Wall Street is going to go out with an NC-17, because that was the rumor at the time, that they were thinking about going out with an NC-17. And I was kind of going around to like all my theaters asking the questions like, hey, if they did end up going out with a 17, would you guys end up getting it? And they pretty much said it's about a 99% 99 to 1%, basically. 99 being no, 1% being yes. Because again, it was a very big film. It was directed by Martin Scorsese. It was starring Leonardo DiCaprio. So again, like there was always that 1%, but they pretty much said no, we don't get 17 films in general. So yeah, no, the After We Collided, because again, you guys might be wondering like, yeah, did you forget what this video is about? Yeah, After We Collided. Yeah, I was just kind of letting you guys know why it should never go out with an NC-17, because again, I have seen some people out there, I mean, flat out saying that that the After films should have been NC-17, and no, because you would have a whole bunch of other issues with it. The majority of us would never get to see it. I would get to see it, obviously, because I'm well over 17, but yeah, I would have to wait for the DVD. I would have to wait for it to come on like video on demand or something. The vast majority of you guys would never, ever get the film if it went out with an NC-17. So the most we can hope for is an R. But yeah, like I said, one of the things that they do have to sort of, sit down and talk amongst themselves is, should they go out with an R? I mean, would we be shooting, fans in the foot? Like, would we be leaving money on the table if we did? And I don't think they will, because again, like I said, they need to go back to the fans. They need to start listening to the fans more, or at least listening to the fans who are willing to work with them, not the ones who are being stubborn, who never would have been, okay with this, who never would have been accepting of anything unless it was like a complete, line by line, page by page adaptation. But yeah, no, for me personally, especially with somebody who's doing the read-throughs, who is reading, plenty of sexually explicit content in the books, yeah, this thing needs to go out with an R. They need to go back to an R, because the first one was kind of a mess, to be honest with you. They did the best with what they got, but the first one was kind of a mess in terms of the rating. Especially given the fact that you're allowed two fucks in a PG-13, and yet there was no cursing in the film. That might be something. Yeah, look for that video, because I'm going to talk about that, because that's always made me scratch my head about that film, about the first film. That I was kind of like, it kind of took me about 10 times before I finally realized, hey, wait a minute. There's no cursing in this. I mean, I'm not hearing anybody curse in this. So yeah, jump down to the comment section below. Let me know what you think. As always, remember that this channel could not continue to grow to the length that it has without you guys. So thank you so much for subscribing. Remember, or just like if you're finding this video for the first time, I'm doing an entire read-through of the entire series of After books. I've already finished the first book. It's entirely up on the channel. I am now currently working through After We Collided. I think I'm up to chapter, I'll post chapter, anyway, I'm up to chapter 60 something in the read-throughs. So yeah, and that will be a daily upload barring any type of illness or any type of personal issues. Every other day I will be posting, different thoughts about the film, different topics that I might come across online or whatever that, I think that you guys might want to hear me talk about, or that you guys might want to hear about. if there's any topics that have come up in the fandom, if there are any topics that that I'm not mentioning, that you guys would like to hear me talk about, leave it down in the comments section. Once the film officially gets the green light, I will be bringing you guys updated information on the After We Collided movie. So keep, subscribing to the channel for that, or now subscribe to the channel if you want to be kept up with any of what I just said. And remember, I'll see you later, Afternators. Take care, y'all.